All right. Yo, 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 what is going on, COD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder. I got little mini builder here with me, which apparently might or might not be a thing, thanks to Sneak. And we got episode 6 here of the CoD Pod. We're pretty excited to bring it back. As always, we love doing these live as much as possible. We got another special guest with us as well, a big YouTuber from the rock scene, along with his own unique background in the genre and space, Shinchi 42. Welcome, Shin. Happy to have you back again with us for this latest episode. How you been?
Hey, doing good. Nice to see you guys here again.
Awesome. Yes. No, we are ecstatic, and episode 6 should be pretty jam-packed. There's a lot to get through. Before we get into some topics, Sneak, let us know how you been. I know you had to get your dirty indulgence done before the show started. We'll just keep that between us, if you know what I mean. But how you been?
I've been good, man. I've been busy in the game. I've been busy in real life, but I've been loving the game. I've been trying to hit the goal of 1 million merits. We're almost there, so it's been very fun in this season so far, fighting. But yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. Can't wait to get on with the episode today.
Awesome. No, that sounds fantastico. All right, so some quick topics that we got today that we are going to be covering. So I think you might have updated this for me as well, but I know I have some listed down. So again, we're going to touch on SS1-2, which, again, for those that are not familiar, right, it's the first merged kingdom between Kingdoms 1 through 4. They're on their second season right now, where they recently onboarded as additional merges for Kingdoms 5 and 6. So now it's Kingdom 1 through 6 for Season 2. We're going to touch on the most recent game update, kind of that sneak, if you will, addition to the game, and some of those patch notes that aren't really listed as patch notes, but, you know, neither here nor there. I love how they didn't take any time at all to actually give that update a title, right? I would have been fine if they just said lazy title included. Just, you know, let us know the level of effort that you're making to add on, but that's cool. You know, neither here nor there. We might touch a little bit on upcoming global release, and maybe if there's time, SS1-3, which is the second merged kingdom between Kingdoms 7 and 10, and then maybe even look a little bit farther ahead and talk about some theories and hypotheses, if that's the plural version there, for Kingdoms 11 through 16, and that could be juicy as well. So, and again, you know, we'll just kind of go where, you know, the wind takes us. You know, we're easy breezy, beautiful cover girls. Maybe not all of us, but I'll take that title. All right. Let's start off with our first one here. And I don't necessarily know if there was an order. Sneak, you let me know, because I know you posted a recent update. Otherwise,
Top to bottom.
Top to bottom. Okay. So I guess based on how I gave thoughts for that, we'll start with SS1-2. So now, again, Sneak, I'll let you go first, and then, Shin, we can follow up with you, and then I'll close it out for thoughts. And, again, where the prairie takes us is where Lassie will follow. So, Sneak, you're up first.
Yeah, man. I don't know how much Shinchi's been watching of the war on SS1 at the moment, but the war's been really fun, you know, especially, like, I've done a recap of it, which is really good. Basically, like, people who haven't really been paying attention, or, you know, Shinchi yourself, like, maybe, you know, you've not knowing what's been going on. Basically, like, this is like the old age war, similar to what happened in your server, if I remember, where it was like, is the big, strong quantity alliance, quality alliance better than the quantity of members, right? And I think in your server, you said, like, the vast amount of alliances was able to shut down, like, the super alliance, which was really cool. But in SS1 at the moment, you have TA and TM, which is basically the super alliance at the moment. They've got their family with UAH, GRZ, and a few others, like TMS. And then you've got everyone else. And this was like everyone in server 4, 5, and 6, all trying to combat against the powers, right? And it wasn't realistically, like, some people can say, like, you know, there's drama and political sides involved, but at the end of the day, I know a lot of, like, server 5 and 6 just wanted to beat the best players, right? And everyone's cool with that, right? You know, when you're looking, like, you know, TM are really bloody good in the open field, and the fact that, like, even TM members are acknowledging BDL members and God members like for their open field commitment compared to like server 4 it's been nuts. But like you saw a lot of good strategy from it. You saw the fact that like server 5 and 6 had to hop regions basically across all the way to Sophrostia, and then you had this obviously big stalemate that happened, and eventually what did occur, I don't know if it would have occurred in the same manner in Shinchi's server, but we basically just ran their troops out. We just had better quality troops, so our 200k would always go 2 to 3 to 1 on their troops, right? So eventually they run out of troops. It allowed TM to push forward, take a zone, and then it was like a repeat. Like it was almost like doomsday again, like D-Day restart. Everything we just did for the last like 4 days or 5 days, well, that's got thrown out the window, and you're doing it all again, right? So that's like how the war's progressed all the way through to where it is now. We're all the way from, if you know the map at all, we've moved from Sophrostia, which is obviously the far left, and we've moved all the way around to now Forgotten Lands, and we've locked out Zone 2 passes from like Server 4. So yeah, it's really fun. I'm not gonna lie. Like I said, I'm almost at 1,000,000 merits. Like I'm almost there. Like, and I'm not even a strong, super powerful player, right? I'm a low spender / like free to play almost, you could say. But I'm hitting so many kills, and it's so fun as well to see the open field like generate the way it has been. So I don't know, like say like how Shinchi might want to like maybe give his input, because obviously he's had some experience with the server, or one of the servers he was in, where he got shut down, right? If I remember from last time. So it'd be really cool to see where like his thoughts on it, and obviously he's played a little bit longer, so he's got some extra thoughts on the game as now. So maybe he's got a different take on maybe the quality versus quantity argument. Maybe, who knows?
Hello. Yeah, for my experience so far, I mean, honestly, the experience in my server is very little when it comes to warfare. Here in server 14 is just so like peaceful. It is controlled by all the Indonesian players now. But for the quantity versus quality, I've heard there was some servers there. I think it was I don't know which server it was, that they were saying that being whales, they were still able to overpower the quantity players that were going against them.
Yeah, that did happen. Honestly, I think some server 5 and 6 guys did do that. Honestly.
So yeah, I mean, I wish I could have seen that process, because for me, I'm not like a super huge whale for my part, but I have some, I'm pretty powerful in our server. But running out of stamina is really the thing in here. And I noticed also, as I've been trying to kind of navigate through the game, if you launch just a rally onto an enemy, let's say if it's a base, or maybe rally the pass, it already consumes 10 stamina. So, if you can draw people out to, consume a lot of stamina, you can really prevent them from coming out and continue to fight.
Yeah, I do like how you can, I wouldn't say like bait, but you can almost bait, right? That stamina. Like imagine you are purposely just shield drops, you're not on territory because the zone might be like deleted because your alliance is moving forward, and you're going to take a rally, and the next minute you just like TP away and just waste the guy's stamina. Like, it's really cool. Like I ain't seen that happen with us at the moment. It's just been literally open field fighting, and when you see people open field fight, it is just obscene how many people are fighting at once though. Like, and I think it's because there's so many fighting at once, it allows you to constantly like stay in fights, so you're not consuming really stamina as much. And you're always like doing some really good, like pretty decent like trades. That's what I've obviously felt so far. even the ones where I've lost, you know, there's been times where honestly, like I've got my archers out and you just get swarmed and you're like, God damn it. Like, but even those times, like afterwards, say like my troops died, when you're watching some of the other players on both sides, you can see some like really good like target prioritization, but then you see some of them generally like wasting stamina on the most like pointless attacks, but you can see like people trying to bait it out. So it'd be really cool to see maybe like in the future more people trying to bait stamina, like you said, and like trying to just shut you out completely from attacking. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, so let me give you an example. For one guy in this server, he has like 6 or 7 farm accounts, and you know, I mean, if I fight against that farm accounts, it's still gonna hurt me. I mean, it's like, it's like about 3 to 4 million power currently. It still has some, damage towards you, and it can really knock you out. And even if you're, at my level, like I'm right about 16 million right now in season 1. So whenever we fight them, there's a lot of them, so it really drains my stamina fighting against them. Although I get a lot of merits for it, but it's, the longevity in the combat is reduced when there's, quantity.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. There's Mrs. Little BN. What do you think, Little BN? What's your thoughts on the quantity versus quality?
The situation, lass. No. Yeah, she'll probably have some thoughts later. It is interesting on the farm approach, because Shinchi's mindset was a little bit of where my head was going with, where, you could arguably have some of the big players that essentially, boost farm or alt accounts, and then almost use those as baiting accounts, where you will go to another player's main, if you will, or try and almost prioritize someone's main. When it's, even if it's something as simple as, baiting the units out of it, where they have to pay that upfront cost just to go out of the base, and then they kind of pull back, but they're still maybe strong enough to do a little bit of damage in the field, and it's something where you just kind of know they have to go and address it. Another example could be like blitzkrieging farmers, right, with farm accounts, where you have some of the big guys who will just go around and basically hit farmers or tiles, and they'll purposely do it and position themselves near, or they'll do it around other big players to maybe kind of drain some of that early stamina. I think there's a couple interesting tactics that could be applied, just kind of operating under the game's logic. How abusive will it be or not? Obviously, I'm sure will depend. But I do find that very interesting on the idea of trying to burn people's early stamina. And I think to a degree, it probably can be used, and I'm sure people will figure out some ways to do it. I guess those are just some initial things that come to mind for me off of what Shin was saying. But yeah, definitely a very interesting topic. That's for sure. Yeah, doing all right? Okay. I guess expanding on the SS1-2 stuff, I think, and I guess to answer a little bit of what Sneak was saying, excuse me, the fight here, really for the most part, if you're looking at, and again, I'll kind of switch my screen here for a sec just so I can show this on the recording, but I touched on this in the beginning of SS1-2, right? So Kingdoms 5 and 6, and for the most part, you're actually pretty right, as far as what you've been hearing for what people have been mentioning. You have some big players with Burning essentially kind of being the number one guy, or it was pretty much the number one strongest player in SS1-2 from Kingdom 6, and then Does coming from Kingdom 5. And even if you look at the personal rankings now that I'm showing off on the screen, Burning's working his way back up. He's also been fighting a lot, so even if you just go off, like he's number 3 right now, I think Does is 7. And then you got Immortal, who actually is working his way up the ranks. He was below Asura. And so he's been coming up, and Asura's number 4, also ranked number 9. So they have 4 people in the top 9 right now as far as on one side. And even if you just look at merits, Burning has been the number 1 guy in merits pretty consistently throughout the second season. Ghost has got pretty close. I think the closest he got was within a couple 100,000. But now the gap is almost 2.5 mil again. and even Does is working his way up there as well. So I mean, I think really what it comes down to is it's not that they can't fight. It's not as though the top players can't, because they have T5 already. So it's not as though, and they have T5. I think they should have their T5 all unlocked, because I think you get all T5 gets unlocked at about 54.5 mil, I think is what it is. And so, they have it, and obviously having a decent amount of troops, given the amount of fighting Burning has been doing. I think the challenge for me to Sneaky's position coming in for SS1-2 was just what appeared to be the imbalance between the power ranges and the thresholds that were set. I did a big video covering this where I pulled a bunch of data from S5 and S6 and compared it with the data on players, alliances, merits, etc. from the first season of SS1-1. And I think at the end of the day, it's just that even though TA and its allies and TM, etc., GRZ, UEH, TMS, they have more condensed power within pretty much two kind of vanguard or flagship alliances, and they also have 66% of the top 200 players. So, for all intents and purposes, they have 100 and whatever it is, 33 players compared to 132, 133 players within the top 200 that are within their alliances or their unions alliances, and then the other 66 plus or minus one is on the other side of it. And I think for me, I just applaud. Like, that's really how I look at it now. I look at it as I applaud the efforts that BDL, that God, that NT45, the IDL now as well, the SS unions, because now they've kind of merged, right? Like, they had all these alliances. Now they're kind of merging more so to condense themselves between God and BDL. And I think IDL right now, because they only have two alliances that are over 2 bill, which is God and BDL. Yeah. So it's been interesting to see, right, how everything has played out. And there's a lot of parts I'm sure we can dissect and talk about, but I think for the most part, the TA Union side has just always had, still a consistent advantage because of the fact that they just had the majority of players within the top 200, and the fact that the players that were coming in from S5 and S6 just did not have a high enough power average to be able to, I would almost argue, just keep up a little bit more from a progression standpoint, just because more players in the first season of SS1-1 probably just had more, more buildings that were higher level on average, more developed tech, probably might have even had a few more VIP levels on them, anywhere from 1 to a couple depending. And so for me, even though I'm happy that the developer said it was just a one-time thing, and they're not going to add on, or it was like a one-off thing, because they did publicly state that. My hope is that continues, and I think with what we're seeing with S7 through 10, with being 4 kingdoms, I'm hoping that's going to be the mindset or the direction that they go in. But so I know I mentioned a few things there, so and I was attempting to try and keep it tunneled, but it didn't happen. That's my bad. So pick and choose whatever you want to respond to their shit.
Love it. Well, the only thing I was going to say, since Shinchi doesn't have too long left before he doesn't update, since obviously it's been obviously a few, well, I say a couple of months almost, well, a month almost since we've had the last episode with him on. What are you looking forward to in the game, Shinchi? Like, obviously release is coming up. We know it's coming up in like 8 days' time. Obviously we're gonna have hopefully a massive influx of players just bursting onto the scene, right? So what are you hoping maybe they add into the game? Maybe like maybe a month, 6 month, you could say it's maybe a short edition, long-term task, up to you. What do you hope they add to CoD when it gets released?
I've been thinking about, like, I'm sure they're probably going to be adding some sort of like Ark of Osiris in this game, but I'm sure it's going to be very different. Another thing is I like what NASTi has said earlier about the one-time thing. I think that's regarding to the merge. I'm not quite so sure how things are going to unfold for us. I think we are going to get into merge. But at the same time, I'm not really looking forward to it because I know it's going to cause a lot more issue. and I don't know what's after that. So, I think I'm just looking forward for more ways to have more of a combat, but not really disrupting the home server. So maybe like, I'm sure they're gonna probably release some sort of actual KVK in Call of Dragons.
Yeah, so basically like hoping they add in new gameplay events where it's like open field combat, obviously like you say, Arc of Osiris, maybe even, well, I know people didn't really enjoy it, but what's the other game mode in Rise of Kingdoms? The like almost like,
Olympia?
yeah,
It was a
maybe
5v5 MOBA.
yeah, so maybe they bring out something like Olympia as well, like to try and shake it up since there is range now. So maybe Olympia might be a bit more interesting to play compared to Rock, maybe.
I think coming after the global update in here, or global launch in here, I think there's definitely going to be a lot of events that are going to push through now. You know, we've seen similar events come out already, just like the Crucible, which is the Kerouac in Rise of Kingdoms. So I think, once global launch hits, they're going to start pumping out all the updates. That's also fun, to keep us all engaged in here in the game. So specifically for me, I'm not really, I'm kind of having a blank slate coming into the game and just taking it in and see what the developers will do. So far, I like what they have done. I mean, it's a very, very carbon copy of Rise of Kingdoms at the end of the day. So it's something that, most of us are very familiar with already.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good take on it. It's like something you're familiar with, but like it's a different taste, right? It's really good look on it.
What about you, BN? What are you looking forward to?
Oh man, gosh, forward to on global release. Honestly, I think the biggest thing I really want for them to not drop the. I don't. Well, maybe I shouldn't word it that way. I think the thing for me is the open field. I just think it's so different. I think to Shinchi's point, right? There's always going to be a consistent amount of common denominators that you're going to find across a kingdom builder. I mean, even Infinity Kingdom to Rock, there was similarities. If you look at something like State of Survival, Lords Mobile, West Game, etc. I mean, there's always going to be consistent things, right? Like an example would be you're probably always going to have research or academy tech, and you're probably going to always have things that you're going to go for that are going to reduce building and research speed times, right? Like I think that's something that's consistent. You're probably always going to have VIP. Like I think those things are more of what I would almost consider staples, at least for my view, more so than for those that may just label it kind of as the carbon copy, which is not. It's not like it's not. Right, to a certain amount of things. I just think those things are becoming more foundational pieces in the genre where, there's just certain things you're going to get no matter what. For me, though, the thing I really like about CoD is it has to be the PvP. I think that is the number one thing that separates it right now from any other game in the genre. There's nothing like CoD right now on the market. There's nothing that's really giving you that type of StarCraft, true RTS feel when you're fighting out in the field. And I think the fact is for anyone that may be undervaluing that, when you're comparing it against Rock and or other games, I mean, respectfully, COD is just on a whole nother level. There's no game, in my opinion, right now that I have seen, until someone introduces me to one or shares one with me, that has my interest. I mean, again, the fact that I have range play, that we're really just at this infancy stage of figuring out the potential, right? I mean, we still haven't even seen a alliance with, 50 to 100 people on voice chat, just, MMO, Total War style coordination. Man, those are the kinds of things I'm looking forward to, and so I think for me the PvP is really what I'm hoping they'll expand on. And just to one last little point, there was even something I had mentioned in one of my recent videos covering the SS1-2 war, where I would love for them to add like a I don't know if you guys ever played. There was this game called oh my god, N-War. It was called N-War. Tom Clancy's N-War. On, I think it was on PlayStation or Xbox and 360.
Yeah, like Xbox. Yeah.
And so, anyways, the game in short was kind of like this top-down commander view, right? I'll just give you the short version, right? It was basically an RTS game, but you controlled. It was kind of like a Company of Heroes. If you ever played Company of Heroes, Company of Heroes is an RTS game, but it's like more Legion based, so like group based. So you're kind of controlling these groups, kind of almost like Halo Wars 2 as well. If you ever played that on the console, but you were like this top down commander, so you got this third person view overhead, and you were able to have like a full zoom out, and you could see where all your units were moving to certain objective points on the map, and then you could also zoom in and do more micro control. And so I think something I had mentioned was I'd love if they almost introduced a type of general or on-field captain role, right? Where basically that person's job in the Alliance was to set markers, set pings, set arrows, this is who we're going to focus fire, this is where we need people to flank, like almost be able to kind of like overlay draw on the map, but in kind of a light capacity. So it might not be too overwhelming, and maybe have some more like coordination. Maybe you can set up like group pairs and things like that, so it's almost kind of like visual aids for the players that are fighting. That to me is really the type of direction I would love to see them go in, because I just think the PvP in COD is at that level that players are gonna come into COD and understand that this is what you would truly consider to be what I would also consider to be a true competitive RTS kingdom builder. And it's unlike anything that I've seen, and I think anything on the market right now. And so for me, that's the part I'm looking forward to the most, and I would love for them to double down on.
Oh, that's really good. I love it. I love it.
Sorry, my passion bubble exploded. I apologize. So
No, I love it. I love it every time. Are you okay, Shinchi? Are you staying any longer, or are you wanting to jump off away now? It's up to you.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump off a little bit here, but one thing I should say is that the unique thing about the game that I also find is that is different from the other game is the like you talk about the open field, is the unlimited fighting of it. Except of course if you get rallied, then you get 0. But I don't know how things are working in your in your battles if people are actually working towards zeroing others, because I feel like people probably shouldn't try to do that, because when they release, if they ever do release a KVK system, and then you're stuck with the players that you have, and then if you keep zeroing players, then you're going to lose player base in your server. So
yep,
that's something people needs to be careful about, losing people, and then their kingdom becomes, or their server becomes weak. But honestly, at the end of the day, I think this game is really fun. My time is so split playing I wish I could play a lot more. But once global launch I can play on my phone, since I'm using Apple product now. It'll be so much nicer than just me having time at home and to be able to play the game. What else should I add?
Where can people find you? Where can people find you?
Oh, find me?
Yeah, where can people find you? Obviously, there's people who know you. Maybe there's some people listening for the first time who don't know who you are. Where can they find you?
Well, you guys can find me on YouTube. I've been doing this type of work genre, and also working with the developers for about 4 years now. The game has a lot of future, in my opinion. I think this game is going to be one of the biggest. I was actually talking to Asya about it, and I said that this could be, bigger or even better than Rise of Kingdoms. So we will have to see, because it really has a lot of potential, and we've seen what Ligu developers have able to do in Rise of Kingdoms, and how they're able to exponentially grow ROK, which a lot of RTS, like when there's people who are trying to, reach out for sponsorships to us, they usually base everything on Rise of Kingdoms because of what Rise of Kingdoms have done in the market of RTS in mobile game.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I see a lot of bright future in here. I think everyone's going to be able to enjoy this game. You guys can always reach out to me on Discord. I mean, I have TikTok as well, and just mainly YouTube as well. But I think I'm gonna head out. Thank you, Sneaky and NASTi, for inviting me here once again.
No problem, man. It's been a pleasure, like always.
Thanks, Shin, for stopping by, man. We always appreciate it. Always happy to have you on.
All right, later, man.
All right, and then there was 2.
And then there's 2.
Per the usual, or per the you. It was a failed attempt at rhyming. Okay. All right. So again, any closing thoughts here for you, Sneak, on SS1-2 before we maybe get to maybe some of the game update, the recent little sneaky ninja game update stuff.
Let me think. So on SS1, not really. The thing what I do have one thing actually. I take it all back.
All right.
So there's one thing I do want to address, like, and I know there's people who are gonna watch it and currently watching. Maybe we're in Super Server 1 or not. Remember, guys, it is a game at the end of the day. The amount of toxic stuff that comes out in chat. There's like a level where it's banter, and you can see people having really fun banter at times. But then there's like other times where there's a line and the person just clearly just blows the line out like, and goes across it. It's just like, come on, like, stay civil, stay respectable in chat, guys. It's nice and simple to do, and then that's pretty much it. Because I know there is some funny stuff as that pops up, as well as, like, I don't know if you've ever checked it, NASTi, but like the constant Facebook memes. Some of them are just absolutely top notch watching them. But
yeah, the ones on the Facebook group.
Yeah.
Oh man,
like,
no, some of that stuff is funny. I will admit, just the creativity of some people is what I
yeah.
should say.
So when you do your stuff like that, it's great, right? It's good fun. But just remember, at the end of the day, guys, it is a game. We're here to have fun. Just remember to lower your big boy panties a little bit. You need to stop getting a bit too aggressive. Like, but apart from that, yeah, no, I think the war itself and the gameplay we've been getting, and everyone themselves, both sides have been fighting amazingly and beautifully. It's been one of those things where you can't fault really, like, just general people who are fighting. It has been a blast to watch. Even yesterday, seeing some absolute amazing cavalry flanks that have been happening on the open field, which was nuts to see. Like, there's some just literally, like, just so much gameplay mechanics that's involved all the time that, like I say, both sides, like, put a little pat on your back. You've done good so far, so keep it up.
Yeah, man, no, for sure. Yeah, I'm just catching TA wrecking Necro. Or, no, sorry, Giant, my bad, not Necro, but Giant. Yeah, they did it with like 10 people, or like 8, however many this is. That was super funny. All right, let's transition. And if we can, let's move over to, if we can, how about, let's talk a little game update. Let's talk a little recent game update stuff. So, there was a recent game update noticed, right? Not titled anything, but it dropped 6 days ago on the 14th of March. And it was pretty big, right? Especially when you consider when the last update hit, right? Which was, let me see here, what do I have for that one? That was on the 21st, right, of February. Yeah. And that was, that was the test, for 1.04 was. And then you end up going into the game update notice on the 14th of March. And this one, we saw some new artifacts. We saw some epic and legendary changes. We saw some, what else do I have here? We saw some skill changes. One to Thea for hers. We saw melee legions get what I would consider, and Cav to get a buff. We have the new infantry skill. Again, some update on battle report layouts that were improved. They removed the enhancement items for the 12 and 24 hours on attacks and defense. Again, re-enabling the Union system, which I'm sure we'll talk about as well here in a little bit, but only for S1+, which is when you go into essentially your second season. And I removed Kanara. That was big. From Gold Chest, and we'll have to wait until we see what's gonna happen with that. And again, quite a few other things. But with that in mind, Sneak, let me know. Again, as always, right? I'll let you go first. Let me know. Again, what stood out to you in the update. What are your 2 or 3 big things to look out for?
My big thing to look out for personally is that flying artifact. It's so weird. because like when I look at it, I try to evaluate as fairly as I can, and I always try and do this with everything in the game. But the problem with the visage is like there's not enough like flying capability at the moment where it makes that artifact feel like you want to be using it. It might be really good and it might prove me wrong, but it just feels personally, the more I look at it, it's one of these ones where it might be sneakily really strong because of the way it ramps up. And technically, if you can ramp those stacks up quick enough and then hit it with a big payoff with multiple flying units, it seems kind of nuts. But it's like at the same time, I want to see how effective the stacking and removal of stacks is, because that's how the weird mechanic works from what I've read of it.
Now, what does it say?
Frames...
Consecutively grants 3 boon shields to a selected friendly legion.
And then when you read the boon shield or effect of the artifact, it says like you gain so many stacks.
Yeah, it says grants 1 stack of Mark of Judgment to the wielder when they grant a shield to any friendly legion. So you get 1 stack per shield you grant to another, not to you. And then Mark of Judgment, it stacks up to 10 times. Rage skills trigger Supreme Judgment and clears all Mark of Judgment stacks. And then Supreme Judgment deals damage to the target legion. Its artifact skill damage 250 per stack, which means it could be 2,500. Are cleared stack, and then Mark of Judgment stacks are cleared. So, I guess if you're granting multiple shields, so it almost seems like you want to run like that. Maybe Madeline. I wonder if that would proc it as well, though. Well, maybe not.
No, because Madeline is single. It's only her.
Yeah.
You want to be granting it to others. So, like, Expertise Fear does it, because it's like, that's what it looks like that's tailored for.
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, you've got Expertise Fear, fine. But that's it. There's nothing else in the game that grants shields to others from a rage effect.
At least
There's Dragon Scale Armor. Yeah, at least yet. Dragon Scale Armor is artifact based, so that doesn't count.
Yeah.
So it's such a weird artifact that I feel like at the moment it is absolute just dog. And that's the best way of putting it. Like it's just dog. But
what they could do is you could run like, and I talked about this on the video, right? Like if they did more, or if they come out with more ways to proc it, you could consider running like a rage generation type talent setup, if it allows on the heroes, where you can try and proc it more often, which would then factor into the artifact as well. So that could be a thing, but I think to your point, this almost feels like more of a foundational, like they're just laying the foundation. Maybe they're going to come out.
It's like they've got it ready, and it just feels like it's just not good yet at all, and it won't be good for I don't even know. But I feel like when that hero, I legit think it needs like 2 or 3 heroes that can do something like this for this to work as effective as they want it. And until that happens, it's just going to be like, even though it's got the tank status and PvP status on it, and that it's still tailored realistically for these flying units. That's what they want you to do with it. They want these flying units to go on this crazy ass flank, hit the button, get this shield so you don't get damaged, and all your guys who have it on are triggering it on each other, so you're all getting stacks now off each other from it, and it's like you're gonna be able to deal damage. So that's cool. But when you like look at the other artifact, it just like destroys it in every single category. It seems so good, this other one. And the cool thing is, and I know one of the like people in TA and TM have said it, it's like, oh, you know, this is the Lilia artifact, and it's like they want you to buy Lilia, and it's like, do they though? Because the thing is, in the game, Lilia is the fire mage, but if we just technically delete Lilia right now, the only legendary mage you have in the game is Valen.
Yeah.
So are we gonna have another mage in the game that's gonna be fire based, and that makes sense? So you can have this fire artifact with them as well. But overall, even without trying to pair fire with fire, that artifact is so good.
Yeah.
Like it is so much better than the other. So it's like I don't know how strong this is going to be compared to like the Phoenix Eye, for example.
Yeah.
But I feel like it is going to be stronger just because of the effect it gives. Like you're putting Scorch on enemies, and it deals a 1100 damage factor at level 1. Like I can't see how much it's going to deal at max level yet. But you also get Magic Key, which is that 15% attack buff. So you get a 15% attack buff, and you put Scorch onto them, and you deal damage. It just seems a bit overloaded for one artifact.
Like, this seems slightly OP. Maybe that's why it looks like a meteor that's about to crash into the earth and destroy the dinosaurs.
So like, that stuff is what you want to be looking out for. If you're looking for Valen as well, this is a prime time to do it. Yeah. Even though people are kind of upset that Kanara's out of the chest, including myself.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
It means you get Valen, though. And what I mean by you get Valen, it means, obviously, like, there's one less legendary out of the pool. And because there's one less legendary out of the pool, the chances are now increased on hitting, right? And you want less legendaries there, especially if you want to hit the one legendary you want, right? So,
well, you can also think of it like this. The other argument can be made that you want more legendaries there, because if you have more legendaries than epics and elites, you have a higher chance of pulling a legendary more on average.
I don't know though, because like it depends on how they do their things. They have their legendary hero chance at 0.99635%. If they put another one in and that percentage stays the exact same, then it doesn't matter. You have the exact same equal chance of hitting a legendary token than you do with as before than you do like if they added one in. The only difference is you've just diluted the pool of heroes that you didn't want. So that's how I look at it. It's really weird.
Yeah, see, when I played Infinity Kingdom, it always felt, because over time they kept adding in more legendary heroes to your chests where you could pool. So for me, at least what it felt like visually was that I was more on average pulling legendary, in their case called immortals, but yeah, I don't know. I guess for me that's just how it felt there. I guess we'd have to see, but I think the fact that if they decide to paywall gate Kanara, or I guess however, because didn't she? I can't remember. Someone told me that she got moved to, was it the wheel?
Yeah, no. Well, she's just been out of the game.
Oh, it was out total. See, someone said that, and I was like, I didn't see her there.
Yeah,
so, and they would have said that. They would have been like,
removed from the game. My speculation, I said, and people might be voicing it, is that I think she's going to just be moved to the wheel, because you have Emery's, like, it's kind of funny because you look at the gold chest question mark, it kind of lays out in front of you. There's 6 heroes in the game. You've got 1 cav infantry, like archer, flying, and mage, right? So you've got 1 of each, all there in the gold keys you can get, right? There's an additional infantry unit just because they're like infantry players. Who cares, right? But you also have Bakshi now, which is the Emery's opposite, which is the wheel commander, which is great. You have Madeline, which is the opposite of Garwood, which is the wheel commander, which is great. So it makes sense if Kanara is the wheel commander right now, and then when they bring the new mage in, maybe who knows when, but whenever they bring the new mage in, maybe Valen does the same fate. Valen hops onto the wheel, and then the new mage is the gold key commander for the rest of like eternity, basically. So it makes sense, like how they've done it. I'm not mad. I'm just obviously just a little bit upset, but. If you haven't seen the video, I got 30 Valen heads, so I can't even be mad, but I can be because I spent 220 keys, so... It is what it is.
No, man, for sure. And it's been... So, yeah, I mean, on that front... Now, the thing I do like, I think for me, my picks would be the changes that they made to probably infantry the most. I like what they did with Cav. And I think the Union bring back. But before we get there, because I'm sure we probably have our thoughts on that to share, the thing I like that they're doing with infantry is it almost feels as though they're giving you a little bit more of a reason now to kind of run infantry as like a role type, right, or more role based. And so I like the change for that reason, doing the flat physical attack increase on Cav and the Forest Eagles. Right, I do like that as well. It almost seems like they're not doing this. They're not doing like an OP type thing. Like we could make the argument with the, as we're dubbing it now, the Lilia artifact. but they're at least bringing infantry and I think Cav a little bit more in line with some slight buffs, small improvements, and they're not going overboard with it. And I do appreciate that. Because I really think that's the way you should tinker. I don't think you should come in and just do an overwhelmingly big swing. You make small changes and adjustments, and then you see how it brings it more in line. And so, again, I like that. I like the new skill 2 as well that I'm showing, right, Rampage, which increases the march speed when you're approaching a target. I like that. And then the Unyielding Rush for the Cav skill. I don't know. I mean, it just, and then like with the range, right? It's just like march speed after colliding with a Legion, the hero commanding the Legion gains an immediate 1,000 rage. So it makes it's like what? They're just going to get an auto, well, in short, right? They'd probably just get an auto active skill the moment that they connect. So again, I like that. And I just think the changes are putting those two units and more so infantry more in line. Because the way I've always viewed infantry, and you know, because I've said this, I'm passionate about infantry, is I have always seen them as like this CC tank. Like they're a disruptor. They're supposed to go in there and discombobulate the enemy, pull some aggro, whatever it is. I really think that's kind of where the value for infantry is in the open field, and I'm hoping that they invest more in that down the line.
Yeah, I always felt infantry were the same. I always kind of considered infantry more tank and bruisers, since there's like Nika. Nika's like just an outright liar to what all the other infantry are so far, because she's just straight out damage, right? Yeah. So it is really cool. I liked it a lot because I said that it gave infantry a character now, you know, it gave them a class. Before, you literally just had a naked infantry unit. It didn't do anything. It didn't have any special abilities. It didn't have anything. Like, and you could look at each faction, and this still to this day is the same currently. But if you look at any of the infantry units, the tree barks, the orcs, whatever, you look at them the same. The swordsmen, they all have the same buffs. They have the same stats. They have the same exact everything. And it's like, bro, if I'm an orc, you're telling me I'm not like got blood rush compared to like, you know, a swordsman that might just have passion or something. Yeah. Like, are you joking? Like, I have a tree here, and you're trying to say it can't have something like unrooted, where it can just remove itself 1 CC ability, maybe on like a minute cooldown or something. Like, it's so insane how they've got infantry units that are just infantry units. It's like, throw these guys at the wall. Don't worry, they're gonna die. Don't worry, they come back. Like, they're meaningless. And it's just like, no, man, give the infantry role something to like be proud of, right? Because you have the mages that have their own roles. You have the archers that have their own roles. Even the flying units have their own roles. For God's sake, like, come on, you've got to give infantry some sort of character. Because the funny thing is, as well, when you give infantry character, it makes the gameplay way better, because like you can look at any game, especially like WoW, League of Legends, Dota, like you name any RTS MOBA style game where like class systems are really important. Bro, tanks are so important and so fun when you see them have their own role. And like, you, even though you might look at, say, like one champion and he might pull you, and you look at the other champion and he pulls you, it's like, okay, they both pull, but this guy pulls you in like a cone with his axe, and he's just trying to chop your head off. And then this other guy is going to pull you with his robotic fist that just is like elastic, man, and it just goes and grabs you, right, and pulls you back.
That blitzcrank pull.
Yeah, so you have all these like abilities that are the same essence, like even like a fresh hook. That's the exact same essence as a blitz hook, but
And
it
that would be
operates a
cool.
little bit different, right?
That'd
And
be
that's
cool if
the
infantry
cool
had
thing
that
about
ability, right?
infantry.
To just pull a unit or something. To your point.
Just had meat hook.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be really cool if infantry and cavalry. Obviously, I don't want to leave the cavalry boys out. You know, they are fun. I'm starting to fall in love with cavalry more now somehow. But yeah, you need to give them some sort of character. I think the cavalry one is a really good step, given that 1k rage. It's really fun as well. Like, I can't wait for maybe like some of the big boys with the artifacts to use cavalry, because I can now imagine the new or the old artifact that came, where it was, you know, you can blink over something, and then once you hit your rage skill, you blink back now. Well, I'm getting 1k rage. You ain't answering any damage now, and I'm blinking back. So I'm just saying, it's going to be really interesting.
You got like the ninja assassin mode. Yeah. Dude, it's like, you're running like speed blitzkrieg cav or something, where you can even use that as a way to kind of pick off like the weak legions, like the ones that might be trying to run away, and you just like do a quick blink. You got the cav speed charge that you got for the or whatever it's called, the unyielding. And then bam, you catch up, you get a kill, barely take any damage, and then you're out. Right, or you blink back, and then now you're going after the next outlier. I love that.
So nuts. Yeah, it's so nuts. Like, you have this artifact in the game, and now they buffed Cav to make that artifact even better. Like, even the fact that, think about it like this way, you don't have the artifact, right? Well, everyone has Cloak of Stealth. You can now be stealth. You can walk all the way up to any of those farming tiles you desire, and you can proceed to instantly hit that farm tile with 1k damage without fear. Like, it's so effective for farm killing and getting merits, especially as a free-to-play player. So, like, it's cool that cavalry have got this buff, and you can see, like, they have now some sort of, like I say, character to them. But, like, the infantry units, I still feel like they've just been pushed in the corner and just left to rot. So I hope they give him a little bit of loving. I don't want him to be broken, obviously. I don't want him to be broken, but I do want him to have some sort of loving. Because, like I said, the game is really fun if you are able to just kind of open your mind a little bit. Like, I know there's a guy in the audience that's going to kind of go nuts, because for the first time seen it happen, where someone is running a Fear and Craig combo with maximum mobility. This march zipped across my screen so fast I couldn't keep up. And the thing is, what was even more brutal, they used the fangs of Akashi, I think it's called.
Ashkari? Yeah.
Yeah. So now you have this zipping march that just zips in front of the entire murder ball and then activates his artifact. Yeah. And he just starts nuking you with this artifact, and he just zips out. Like, it was so weird to watch, and it's on video as well. You see this Craig just appear, and then he just disappears, and it's fine, and everyone's cool with it. Like, so if you're willing to do, like I say, a bit of creativity, especially with the infantry, hopefully the developers do it. But if you're willing to do a bit of a creativity, use the artifacts with what's been in the game, I'm telling you guys, you're going to enjoy it a lot. And there's a lot of exciting things to do with them. It's just, you've got to do it, you know?
No, man, for sure. That's, I mean, I remember hearing about that when someone told me. I don't know if I've seen it on video yet, but someone asked me about it, and they were like, hey, have you seen that this happened? I was like, dude, that actually... I mean, I see mechanically in the process for that they went through to get to that point for Talatry and who they ran in the comp and the artifact usage. But I think to your point, it was just another good example of players trial and error testing things to see what can work, what can't work, and kind of coming up with some creative approaches to apply on the open field. Okay, so last thing. Let's do this. Last thing to touch on is going to be, and then obviously if there's anything else that you might have, the last thing will be unions. So, and that's probably, I think, the next biggest thing, or probably one of the next biggest things that came from the game update, is that they completely took out unions out of the game. And they then decided, which I can only imagine is because of the, I don't know if you want to call it backlash, but let's just say the constructive feedback that was given from the community. And they opted to add it back in now for the second season, or season 1+ Burning Lands. And this time, though, they reduced it, right? You used to be able to have 3 unions, now you can only have 1. So, Sneak, again, as usual, right? You take us off. What are your thoughts on this? And then I can wrap out.
I'm not gonna lie, I hated this whole situation. And that is me passionately saying that. Because when we first saw the union change in the patch where it was like they're being removed, I knew in my head the next week was going to be just a complete mess and a complete nightmare. And when they fixed it, it was going to be an even more mess and an even more nightmare. And it literally turned out for that for so many days until like, and it's still kind of going on today. And what I'm talking about, it was like, the thing is with the union change, they said in the patch notes, and it was quote, right, what they said, that they were trying to remove unions because the smaller alliances wasn't able to fight or like pair up with the bigger alliances in the union and fight, which was like the complete opposite to truth, which was just insane. And they removed it, and like pass taking became a nuisance. It wasn't like hard, it was just like you were playing rock, right? It wasn't just simple mechanics. And both sides on Super Server 1 felt it. But the problem was like, once the world was pretty much over, they've introduced unions back, right? And it wasn't just the fact that like people were like, yes, they've got unions back. It was literally like, why are people cheating? Why is this happening? You know, and it's just like, guys, it's just a beta. Learn that sometimes developers make a mistake, and this was unions was a clear mistake removal. When they put it back in with 1, I think is a good thing, because the thing with unions and the power of unions isn't realistically about who can control passes. It's not really about who can even, you know, freely move within the pass. It's honestly the open field aspect. Like, the amount of times you're in open field and you're not in a union and you was trying to target people, or even us guys as content creators sometimes, like, you're looking at the battlefield and everyone's white. And you're like, okay, so who's allied and who's the enemy, right? Yeah. And who's the allied enemies, for example? Like, all I've got on screen is just white text. It doesn't help me. It doesn't help the player, which is more important to understand what the hell's going on screen. So, like, the fact that they brought it back was good. The fact that they've even just introduced 1 is good. It allows a lot of alliances to work how generally they do operate, whereas like you have your main alliance and like, or like your brother and sister alliances, as a lot of people name them, or like, you know, brother and sister organizations, which is fine. I don't know if they're gonna add 1 more and see if just 2 is enough, you know, because maybe with 2, you know, you can have that balance of, you know, having a smaller alliance join the big alliances in their union. Or do they feel like because they've added 2 in now, the big alliances are just going to abuse it and just union against again with each other? But at the end of the day, like, even if you remove the unions, the player is still going to ally with other alliances. You know? So it's like, why remove something that's just gonna happen anyway? It's like the most stupid thing to think of as like a solution, like, instead of trying to fix the problem, right? So it was just like, yeah, as you can tell, I really hated the whole thing. I hated the removal of it, and then like just re-adding it back in and out of nowhere with just 1 again. It's just like, just fix it. Don't remove it, just fix it, it's fine. Like, people with the union at 3 were a lot more happier than they are at 1, which is kind of weird. But it's one of them where it's like you got a trial and error. Maybe they put 2 in, like I said, and then they're gonna remove it and put it back down to 1. You know, maybe that's what they're gonna do. But no matter what a player decides to do, or an alliance, should I say, they can't control that, and that's the whole problem. Like the developers can't control, for example, one of the audience members here. Yeah. He might be a leader of an alliance, and then he's like, do you know what? I'm gonna ally with these guys, and it's like, well, okay, like I can't stop you from doing that. And in Rise of Kingdoms, they literally do the exact same thing, and you just used to put text, right? You used to just type in like allies, GOD was my ally, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it's always in like the alliance bio. So everyone knew it would, whose allies are anyway. So it's just stupid, like the removal of it and then putting it back in. It just caused, for me, more headache from just like player responses over, like gameplay response, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
it was like the community feedback, right? The community backlash was just way more stupid and brutal compared to the backlash of the gameplay, because the gameplay didn't realistically change. It was just like, instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe you went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like you added 1 extra step to the equation. So I don't think that was, again, gameplay wise, not wise. Obviously the 4 unions was a problem. I don't think so, as you can tell. But what about you? How do you see it? Because I see it really, like, I wouldn't say harshly, but I do see it kind of horridly.
Yeah, so my view on it is I just didn't understand in general why they removed it. I didn't think the response and their answer had justified removing the entirety of unions, because it just wasn't clear enough on what they were really trying to combat. And it was and I talked about this in the video I put out, which was essentially, it's like the difference between someone who understands, who is playing in the game or watches enough gameplay to and talks with people, right, that run alliances and just understand what is being done. It's like the difference between watching from afar and actually participating, at least in one way. So you can understand what like the current meta is and what people are going to do, psychologically, regardless if you're giving them the choice or not to do anything. Because I think this is just a classic example of, a level of disconnect, right? I think there's a level of disconnect potentially between maybe the devs or whoever is kind of in charge of, looking at those features, and then, maybe they were hoping for something that just didn't happen. And I just didn't see the reason why they even removed the union system in the first place. I think them removing the union system definitely played a impactful part into how the second season of SS1 -1 played out, now being SS1-2. And I think it played a little bit more in favor of TA side. I don't think it was an overwhelming amount, but I do think it played a factor in being a little bit more of an advantage to them, mainly just due to the fact that you had to do so much pass switching, and they obviously had more. They at times had more. Here you go. They at times had more overall activity as far as number of players that were online compared to TA. So, and then because they also had more alliances that were connecting to the pass, they also had to do more pass switching or swapping in general, right, than TA and TM and GRZ and TMS had to do. So, I think when you look at those numbers, and then factoring in just how SS1-2 was set up with S5 and S6 getting kind of the late addition there, I think those are just things that, and like you said, to your point, people are going to union no matter what. Just because you don't have, just because you take away the system, doesn't mean that they're all of a sudden going to be like, oh, well, we're just not going to partner with you. We're not going to work on swapping pass trades to push people through. So I think part of it just kind of crippled a little bit of the potential for what we could have seen on the PvP side. And I just don't think and like I said at the beginning, I just don't think the answers and the responses that they gave truly justified removing it. I think what if they really wanted to do something, I think what they should have done is ask the community first for feedback, and let everyone give their input, maybe do a survey, a round table, ask people for what their thoughts were, and provide where they wanted to go with it. I think that was the one thing that I really would have loved for them to do. I would have loved for them to come from a place of, hey, this is what we're thinking as the devs. This is the direction that we would like to try and go in based on what we had planned out. And we think that if we removed one or two or all the unions, we hope that this would be the benefit, that this would be the resolution, right? That would occur. And I think the challenge is that they just didn't necessarily do an ideal job up front of identifying what they felt the hurdle was, right? And instead, to your point, is where you then ended up hearing the community with the backlash and, to an extent, outrage, right, is probably rightly so, that they ended up hearing because of the removal. People like myself, you, others even chimed in as well. So, I think that's the thing when you're going to try and sway a community and sway a group, is you have to initially state what are your intentions, identify what the hurdle is that you think is happening that is causing a lower value product or value game, and then ask the question, provide some data, and say, hey, look, this is what we think the solutions can be, right? And if they go forward with it, okay, right? I mean, again, we're not saying you have to come and talk to the community every single time, but I just think getting input and feedback into the people that play the game, where we don't know if the developers play the game on every level or every leveled facet that we do, right? Like, are devs leading alliances? Are they being officers? Are they fighting on the front lines? Are they managing kingdoms? Are they doing diplomacy? Are they recruiting for kingdoms? Like, all of these things are really important to understand your audience and to understand the product that you've put out, not just you developing the sandbox and the tools for us to operate in, but understanding how those tools are being utilized, and not just your initial intent for how you see it being utilized from kind of the outsider looking in as the developer. And I think that, for me, I hope, is something that, isn't going to be like a future level of disconnect, because I often find that can be the case where, when I played Infinity Kingdom, and this is the last, what happened here? Did you do something? Oh, no. When I played Infinity Kingdom, and that's the last thing I'll say because she's getting a little edgy right now, but when I played Infinity Kingdom, I actually had the opportunity to go and have conversations with the developers. Like, they did this round table where they invited, just good feedback, people from the community to come and ask questions. And we were able to talk to the devs, give direct feedback. They invited us into a personal Discord, and a couple of them showed up. And I thought that was a great way to do things. And I like what they're doing with the monthly feedbacks as well, right, from suggestions. I think that's a great touch. But I think for me, sometimes I just feel like it comes down to a disconnect. So that's the last thing I'll say.
No, I get what you mean. It's really funny, though, because it's like, if you look at another game, and this is a game completely out of its genre, guys, so if you might know it if you're a PC gamer, but there's like a game like called Path of Exile, and this was like a big prime example of where the start, especially when the game did start, for God knows how many years it's been out now, but especially for that, I would say the first like 10 seasons, which is like a long time, a couple of years, maybe 3 years worth of gameplay or something. Or maybe longer. Someone could correct me. But the thing with Path to Exile were, it's a complete free-to-play game. So you could say the exact same concept as, Call of Dragons or Rise of Kingdoms. It's a free-to-play based game. Obviously, there's spending elements, but in Path to Exile, it was all cosmetic-based. But the thing which the dev team did outstandingly was they always listened to the community. You would see them post on the Path to Exile community boards questions. Should we do this? Should we do that? Should we, include this season? Does this need to change? And every single time, it was voted on. And every time it got voted, whatever was the result happened. And it's the exact same thing that's happened as well, I believe, in old school RuneScape. They're doing the exact same thing there, where players from, maybe the old guard or whatever who are playing it still, they've asked those guys and the community, this is going to be in the next update. Would you like it or not, right? and they'll give you loads of different things to put yes or no, and you're able to talk and obviously give feedback, and at least the players are able to give their own personal feedback, and it's a nice, easy way of doing it, right? Because it's a simple yes or no, you know. No. Do you want this new hero in the game? Yes, you know. I definitely want him in the game, but it's stuff like that what they could definitely improve on, and hopefully in the future, like you said, they don't disconnect themselves from the community, and they do try to listen to the community, especially even if it was through us, right? Even if us guys here, the podcast gets big enough where there's a load of members that are in here, we could be asking questions for the dev team, right? Would you guys want this in the game? Would you guys want this in the game? And we can have live feedback for an episode, for example. So I just hope in the future, like you said, they able to understand what the player wants and not what they want, right? Because that's a really thing. Well, a really clever thing. A wise man named Dragothian said to me once. He was like, "Don't make the content you want to make. Make the content the viewers want to make, right?" And it's the same thing with the game. You know, don't make a game that you want to play because I'm not you. You know, but if you make a game that I want to play, or you, or one of the community members want to play, then it's gonna kick off, and that's what gets the attention. So I hope they're able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, no, for sure. And again, just to make, I guess, my last little correction there, right? I'm not necessarily saying that they always have to come out, right, and listen to us, for example. And I'm also not saying that they do have a level of disconnect. What I'm saying is I hope that there is not, in general, a level of disconnect due to that, which can cause those types of what we may consider to be impulsive changes from the community. And that's why I'm saying that level of transparency is really important. Anyways, let me go ahead and end because my daughter is, I think, crying upstairs. So let me go and see what's going on. But Sneak, thanks so much for joining me on this week. I'm going to go ahead and end this one a little short so I can go play Nurse.
I'll let everyone know that you were it.
All right,
if
man.
you guys are wanting to catch BN,